LeBron James called criticism from older NBA players soft.
And that instantly got attention across the basketball world. Shaq heard it. Barkley heard it. Every former player paying attention heard it. And eventually Michael Jordan heard it too. But Jordan didn't react with anger. And he didn't launch into some emotional rant. Instead, he responded in a way that hit much harder than anyone expected. Before we go any further, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think calling veteran criticism soft-hating was LeBron's biggest mistake in this entire situation? Or do you think something else about the way he handled it was even worse? To understand why Jordan's response created such a buzz, we need to go back to where this whole thing started. In early 2026, LeBron James made his feelings clear while commenting on an Instagram post. He said there is a major difference between constructive criticism and what he called soft-hating. He also argued that much of the criticism coming from retired players felt more like negativity than genuine basketball analysis. That comment changed everything because LeBron wasn't pushing back against one former player or one specific opinion. In the eyes of many fans and former players, he seemed to be lumping an entire generation of NBA legends into the same category. Former players who had questioned parts of his game, discussed his finals record, compared eras, or challenged certain decisions suddenly felt like they were being dismissed with one label. And that did not sit well with a lot of people. Shaquille O'Neal appeared to take those comments personally. After all, Shaq spent years on television and podcasts giving his honest opinions about today's NBA stars. Sometimes he praised LeBron. Sometimes he challenged him. Sometimes he compared him to players from other eras. That's what analysts do. So when LeBron suggested that much of this criticism was simply soft-hating, many people immediately connected those comments to voices like Shaq's. The conversation quickly exploded online. Rumors started circulating about possible tension between the two. Podcast clips spread everywhere. Debate shows jumped on the story. Social media turned every quote into a headline. As usual, the internet grabbed hold of every detail and kept pushing the story even further. But while everyone was focused on the back and forth involving LeBron and Shaq, something else was happening quietly behind the scenes. Michael Jordan was watching. He wasn't flooding social media with posts. He wasn't calling into sports shows. He wasn't trying to dominate headlines. Instead, Jordan waited, listened, and eventually shared his thoughts. During an NBC interview with Mike Tirico as part of his MJ Insights to Excellence segment, he explained that the title wasn't something that made him overly excited or upset. Then he delivered a statement that immediately grabbed people's attention. He said, "We paved the road to the Kobe's and LeBron. And to me, that is the beauty of the game of basketball, that a player after a previous player has evolved the game further." At first, it sounded like a respectful compliment. Jordan openly acknowledged that players like Kobe Bryant and LeBron James helped push basketball forward. He recognized that every generation builds on the one before it. There was no bitterness, no jealousy, no attempt to tear anyone down. But then came the part that really got people talking. Jordan followed it up with a message that many interpreted as a direct response to the criticism controversy. He essentially reminded everyone not to use the success of the current generation as a reason to dismiss or disrespect the people who helped create those opportunities in the first place. That was the moment that landed with so many fans. Jordan never mentioned LeBron by name. He didn't need to. His message was clear. Basketball evolves because each generation adds something new. But that growth should not be used to diminish the players who helped build the foundation. And that's what made the response so powerful. If Jordan had gone on television and started attacking LeBron directly, the entire conversation would have turned into another loud sports debate. People would have argued that he felt threatened by the comparisons. They would have claimed he was emotional or defensive. But Jordan didn't give anyone that opening. Instead, he delivered a calm, measured response that forced people to stop and think. There was no shouting, no drama, no personal attacks. Just a simple message from a basketball icon who has been retired for more than 20 years, yet still knows exactly how to command the room whenever he speaks. And because of that, His words ended up carrying even more weight than if he had raised his voice at all. That is not the reaction of someone feeling pressured. That's the reaction of someone who already knows the weight their words carry and doesn't need to raise their voice to prove it. And when you look at what Shaq added to this conversation, it starts to make Jordan's message feel even more significant. Shaq brought up something that goes far beyond championships, statistics, or highlight reels. He talked about something that can't be measured on a stat sheet: fear. According to Shaq, he has heard players openly admit they feared Michael Jordan. He said players from Mario Chalmers' era talked about fearing Kobe Bryant too. But when it came to LeBron James, Shaq said he never really heard players describe him that same way. And according to him, that opinion brought heavy criticism from fans. But the comment that really got attention was when he suggested that LeBron cared about being liked. That statement hit hard because many people associate Jordan, Kobe, and Shaq with a completely different mindset. Jordan never built his legacy around popularity. Kobe wasn't worried about making everyone comfortable. Shaq dominated games with confidence and never seemed concerned about whether opponents approved of him. Their focus was winning, competing, and imposing their will on the court. Fair or unfair, many fans see that mentality as part of what made those players feel larger than life. Then came the response almost nobody expected from LeBron. He didn't launch an attack on Jordan. He didn't challenge Shaq. He didn't spend weeks defending himself. Instead, during a conversation with ESPN's Dave McMenamin, he said something surprisingly personal. "I hope I made him proud at least wearing that number 23. That quote immediately caught people's attention. Think about everything LeBron has accomplished. More than 2 decades in the NBA, multiple championships, multiple MVP awards, the all-time scoring record, 10 finals appearances. One of the most accomplished careers basketball has ever seen. Yet, in that moment, none of those accomplishments seemed to matter as much as the approval of the player he grew up admiring. That's why the quote resonated with so many people. It didn't sound like a carefully rehearsed answer. It sounded genuine. It sounded like a man pulling back the curtain and showing a side of himself that fans don't always get to see. For years, LeBron has been compared to Jordan. Every championship, every playoff run, every setback, every achievement, the comparison never stopped. And in that moment, he seemed less interested in winning an argument and more interested in showing respect to someone who helped inspire him. LeBron also expanded on the comparison itself in a way that many people felt was surprisingly thoughtful. He explained that he has never viewed himself and Jordan as the same type of player. He described himself as a pass-first player, someone who naturally looks to create opportunities for teammates while controlling every aspect of the game. Jordan, on the other hand, approached the game differently, often looking to take over as a scorer when the moment demanded it. LeBron's point was that both players are unique. Jordan is one of one. LeBron is one of one. 2 completely different styles, 2 completely different paths, 2 completely different basketball identities. Trying to compare them directly, he suggested, can sometimes miss the bigger picture. Then the conversation shifted to the topic that always seems to follow LeBron everywhere. His finals record, the 4 championships, the 6 finals losses, the debate that never seems to disappear. LeBron admitted that when he was younger, those criticisms bothered him. He listened to them, he thought about them, he carried them with him. But then he raised a question that continues to divide basketball fans. He said he sometimes wonders, is it because it is me? In other words, are his finals losses judged differently than similar setbacks from other great players? It's a question that sparks strong opinions on both sides. Making 10 NBA finals is an incredible achievement. Losing 6 of them is a valid topic of discussion. But LeBron argued that some people act as if losing in the finals is somehow worse than not reaching the finals at all. Whether fans agree or disagree, it's a point that has become a major part of the conversation surrounding his legacy. And that's exactly where Jordan's earlier message suddenly becomes impossible to ignore, because it ties this entire debate together in a way that few people expected. Jordan made something very clear in his comments. He acknowledged that the GOAT debate creates tension. He acknowledged that some retired players felt frustrated by being labeled as soft haters. He also made it clear that he doesn't carry any bitterness toward today's players. In fact, he described basketball as something that grows from generation to generation, with every era adding something valuable to the game. That sounded respectful and diplomatic. But then came the line that changed everything. Do not use the progress against the people who made it possible. That wasn't some random statement floating in the air. Many people saw it as a direct response to one specific controversy, one specific comment, and one specific way of describing criticism from former players. Jordan wasn't speaking in vague terms. He was addressing the bigger issue. The idea that experienced players who helped build the league's history were being dismissed simply because they offered opinions that weren't always flattering. His message was simple. You can celebrate progress without tearing down the people who helped create it. You can drive farther down the road. You can break records. You can achieve things nobody thought were possible. But that doesn't erase the work of the people who came before you. And that's what made Jordan's words hit so hard. What often gets lost in all the headlines is a much more interesting detail. Jordan and LeBron have never really been enemies. Years ago, Jordan reportedly made a private phone call to sports journalist Michael Wilbon regarding a young LeBron who was already carrying enormous expectations. According to Wilbon, Jordan encouraged people to ease up on the criticism and explained several reasons why he admired LeBron's talent and potential. Think about that for a second. Jordan didn't have to do that. He wasn't required to step in. He wasn't responsible for protecting another player's image. Yet he did it anyway because he understood something most people didn't. He understood pressure. Jordan knew what it felt like to carry impossible expectations. He knew what it felt like to be judged before the story was finished. He knew what it felt like to have every setback magnified and every failure turned into a headline. Before the championships came, Jordan endured years of playoff disappointment against the Detroit Pistons, 3 straight postseason exits before finally breaking through and starting one of the greatest dynasties in sports history. At the time, plenty of people questioned whether he could get over the hump. Sound familiar? Jordan recognized that same pressure surrounding LeBron. He saw a young superstar being asked to carry enormous expectations while being judged every step of the way. That's why the context matters so much when looking at Jordan's recent comments. This wasn't some personal attack. This wasn't Jordan trying to score points in the GOAT debate. This was Jordan drawing a line. He was essentially saying there's a difference between competing with someone's legacy and dismissing their perspective altogether. Those are two completely different things. You can challenge history, you can build on history, you can even surpass expectations. But when criticism from former players gets automatically categorized as jealousy or bitterness, that's where Jordan believed the conversation starts going in the wrong direction. And honestly, that's why so many people paid attention to his response, because it wasn't emotional. It wasn't loud. It wasn't designed to generate headlines. It was calm, controlled, and impossible to ignore. Jordan acknowledged LeBron's greatness. He acknowledged how much the game has evolved. He acknowledged that newer generations have taken basketball to places previous generations couldn't imagine. But he also reminded everyone that evolution doesn't happen without a foundation. That's the point many fans felt he was trying to make. Then another interesting twist happened after the Los Angeles Lakers' playoff run came to an end against the Oklahoma City Thunder. LeBron once again spoke about Jordan. This time he referenced Jordan's NBC interview where Jordan talked about how much he still loves basketball despite being retired for more than 20 years. LeBron said what stood out to him wasn't controversy. It wasn't criticism. It wasn't the GOAT debate, it was the passion. He said he heard someone talking about a game they still deeply love. Someone who gave everything to basketball and still carries that connection long after their playing days ended. And the way LeBron spoke about it didn't sound like someone responding to an enemy. It sounded like someone responding to a basketball legend he genuinely respects. That's why this entire story ended up being far more complicated than a simple Jordan versus LeBron argument. These are two icons who helped define different eras of basketball. One won 6 championships in 6 finals appearances and built a reputation that opponents never stopped talking about. The other put together one of the most statistically remarkable careers the sport has ever seen while facing levels of scrutiny that few athletes in any sport have experienced. They aren't the same player, they never were. And that's exactly why comparing them will always create debate. But Jordan's message never seemed to be about proving who was greater. It was about perspective. It was about respect. It was about understanding that success doesn't happen in isolation. The game existed before LeBron arrived. Great players helped build it. New generations expanded it. The story of basketball is bigger than any one player. And Jordan's message was simply a reminder not to forget that part of the story. In the end, LeBron called some of the criticism soft hating. Shaq questioned whether opponents ever feared LeBron the same way they feared Jordan or Kobe. Jordan responded with, "Do not use the progress against the people who built the road." And LeBron answered by saying he hoped he made Jordan proud while wearing number 23. Not many people expected this situation to unfold with so many layers. So let me know what you think. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below.